Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.
SolGold and its Cascabel copper gold project in Ecuador has been a saga for the ages. Hoping to write the final chapters is Scott Caldwell, CEO. This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Gold Forum Americas in Colorado Springs. Scott, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Perhaps forgive me for the bit of hubris in the introduction there, but SolGold has been a story and Cascabel has been a story that's been around for a long, long time. There's been a lot of ups and downs over the years, and a large amount of excitement on the corporate side, perhaps too much at some point in time. Where are we now in the SolGold story?
Sure. First, the saga, I've been invested in this thing as a shareholder since 2016. So I've been with the story, it's at 7 years now. So I know the ups and downs. And bottom line, I think that the Cascabel discovery, the Apollo deposit, is a tier 1 asset. So if you pull away all the noise, things that we can talk about, but it still is a tier 1 asset. And so where are we today? We're undergoing a strategic review process. We're also looking at de-risking the Cascabel project on the ground, and we can spend a few more minutes talking about that too. So,
okay. Now I think you were interim CEO, you promoted or made full CEO, and it seems that you were essentially given a mandate to conclude a sale process for Cascabel, to take it to the ultimate conclusion of either getting a joint venture partner in or selling the asset completely. Where are we in that process?
Yeah, we call it the strategic review process, and we are looking at all sorts of options from joint venture or earn-in on our outside exploration tenements or say a concentrate takeoff at Cascabel or anything thereof. And so, yeah, it is one of our key mandates is to continue to advance the strategic review process. It started in earnest right after the close of the Cornerstone transaction, so that would be March. The transaction closed in late February. That's when we got the data room active and open and started to sign NDAs and CAs with various parties. There's a number of parties interested in the projects, whether it be outside exploration or Cascabel. We have signed CAs, we've had site visits. It continues to advance, but no set timeline, and it is an interesting process, and a lot of parties are taking a good hard look.
You've got some of the biggest names in the industry on your shareholder register: BHP, Newcrest Mining, which obviously is soon to be Newmont, and Franco-Nevada as well. Over the years, there's been a little bit of friction between the company or company management and some of those. Has that soured relationships, or have you been able to repair some of those relationships?
Well, I've been asked that question a lot, in particular about Newcrest, soon to be Newmont, and BHP. But when I was last asked the question, BHP and Newcrest both voted against me in the last shareholders meeting, which was last December. We've done quite a bit of work since then. I'm hoping that we're slowly repairing those relationships. I have not met with Newmont yet. I intend to meet with them at this conference as an introductory meeting to at least put a face to the name. We'll see where they're at. I would encourage Newmont to look at the underlying data before they made a decision. I'm sure they will. They're a well-run company, and hopefully we can fix this BHP relationship over time.
As part of the strategic review process, you stopped work on the feasibility study for Cascabel. Was there anything more in that stoppage than the fact you're doing the strategic review? And with the feasibility study work stopped, what work programs are you advancing at the moment?
Sure. We stopped the DFS, the definitive feasibility study work, really for cost savings, and we believe we being myself and the board of directors believe that there may be a better way to develop the Cascabel project, and we call it the phased approach. So we're working on a modified PFS, pre-feasibility study. We have outside independent consultants, big name people that people will recognize, block cavers, mill design people, and so we're looking at starting smaller, i.e. still a large mine, and ramping up, so lower capital costs, shorter development schedule, and then we end up in the same place, a large block cave mine at 25 million tons per annum, but it might be 10 years down the pipe. I don't have any numbers yet. So we're working on that. That'll be completed the first quarter of next year, so Q1 of 2024. So we're working on that. We're also doing what I call low-cost advancement of the project in the field. So Cascabel, for example, we've signed an option on one of our possible tails storage facility sites, and it's probably the preferred site. It's downhill the whole way to it, easy access. It's capable of handling 2+ billion tons of tails, so a very large site. So we have an option to purchase. We're doing the technical work on it. If it's technically feasible, we may or may not exercise that option. We're getting the right-of-way for the tails and concentrate pipeline, but primarily the concentrate pipeline to the coast. Again, it's a low-cost option. It's right-of-way. It's an old railway line owned by the government, and we're negotiating the right to bury our concentrate pipeline on that right-of-way. So we're doing things like that. Proceeding with the exploitation contract and the Investment Protection Act. That's gone quite well. We announced a month or two ago the signing or the agreement on the terms for the exploitation contract, term sheet. The final contract we hope to have signed before the end of the year. So we're, again, low-cost initiatives that aren't costing us millions of dollars in engineering work to negotiate the contracts in Ecuador.
With the exploitation contract, Scott, is that a document that's signed by the president? Does it have to be ratified by Congress in Ecuador? It's
signed by the president, by the current, so it would be President Lasso's administration that would sign it. Binding, and same with the IPA. It's well advanced, and again, we're dealing with the government officials, so timing is a little bit out of our control, but very supportive, and it's moving quite well. So.
In terms of the phased approach that you mentioned for the development, I know it's perhaps preliminary to talk about the capital expenditure, but one of the earlier economic studies for Cascabel, had let's say an overall capital cost of around $10 billion US dollars. What sort of stepping stones, if you like, for capital are you looking at?
Yeah, we'd like to keep the initial capital cost well below, let's say 1.2, 1.3 billion, something like that. Again, I'm giving you sort of a range there. I realize that's still a lot of money, but rather than an initial capital cost of 2.7 billion, let's just say half of that if you look at it. And so it's a lower throughput mining, higher grade material, and it's the same resource. So we've updated the resource with all the drilling that's been done to date on Cascabel, no material change to what's been disclosed. And so it's essentially we have 245 kilometers of drilling, so we added another 10K. You can it's not going to move the needle much, right, with that much drilling or that little drilling compared to the total. So it's the same resource, same flow sheet, i.e. concentrate, copper concentrate. Little tweaks, like to start, we would probably not build a copper concentrate pipeline to the sea. We would truck it because the concentrate production would be far less than if you're at 25 million tons an hour, things like that. So we're excited about it. Reduces the development schedule. We'll have two mining methods. It looks like we'll have possibly a sub-level cave up high, and then develop the cave down below, and then we'll let the engineers figure it out. But that's the basic concept.
So SolGold share price has been hit like pretty much every other juniors. So if you're on the other side of the equation, it's a great market for buyers or potential companies that are potentially looking at joint venturing the project with you to help build out their own development pipelines. Does that complicate your aims of perhaps doing a transaction, or does that help facilitate that?
I think it's kind of a yes and no, right? In other words, as a shareholder, I would like to see the share price much higher. But again, as a buyer, I would think it would make it pretty attractive right now. And so it's kind of, let's wait and see what happens. But, we're trying to do everything we can to get the share price up. And I think this phased approach we'll find out when it's released next year. So see what happens.
You're talking with a lot of different companies, copper producers, gold producers, I imagine. What are some of the main concerns they have when they're looking at the project? Is it the deposit? Is it the technical aspects? Is it country risk aspects?
I think today, number one is from the people I talk to, it's the country risk, it's the political aspects. I live there. I was there through the election. I walk to work every day. I'm at site on a very regular basis, but every week. Spend a night or two there. Where we're doing business, it's all quiet. Cascabel I'm talking about. So things are going quite well. So I think that the old adage, bad news sells newspapers. I think it's, we kind of all focus outside on the bad news of a country rather than the good things that are happening. The next election's in October, and again, we're apolitical. We support either candidate that becomes the president. We're excited about working with them. So number one is the political risk or the country risk. Technically, anyone that's really looked at the job that's been done on the resource or any of the technical work is very impressed. I think and if you look at our ESG efforts in the field, the community relations, the government relations at the local and national level, very, very well done. Very good job.
Now, you mentioned the second round of the presidential election in mid-October. It seems that both candidates would be positive for the mining sector. They're both sort of pro-investment. They're both pro-business. What's the sort of word on the ground or the feeling on the ground for the eventual outcome?
Yeah, it's pretty close. In other words, our feedback is we're not really sure who would win from our experts, both internal and external. We'll wait and see. But they are both, as you point out, both candidates, both parties are pro-development, pro-responsible development in the resource sector, so copper mining. So I think we'll get the support of either administration once the election's concluded in October.
Now, selling the project or finding a partner, joint venture development partner, is one part of the challenge. But obviously in the copper sector, despite the fact there's a supply deficit coming, people talking about 2025 and robust demand going forward due to energy transition applications, the copper price has been stubbornly below $4 a pound. To what extent does that complicate things? What's the thinking amongst the copper majors you've been talking with about developing new copper mines?
Yeah, I think, that it's kind of funny the way it works sometimes, that when prices are high, people want to buy into an asset, right? Good copper price, we buy into it. Low copper price, and so traditionally people kind of buy high, sell low. If it's like my stock portfolio, but there's interest in the project. And in other words, I just go back to the rocks at Cascabel. Good grade, great technical aspects, good metallurgical recovery, clean concentrate. And I think that's what people are going to focus on, not so much our share price and or the price of copper, but we'll see. We'll see where it goes.
Well, it sounds like you've got a lot going on. So perhaps to end, why don't you summarize the key catalysts coming in the next 12 to 18 months for the company?
Sure. Number one would be we'll continue with the strategic review, but that's a bit out of my control or out of our control. We'll see where that goes. But like I said, we're looking at all aspects of the strategic review. But I think the key catalyst for us will be this phased approach. I think it will be received very favorable. I could be wrong. But it's going to be a lower capital cost, a much shorter development schedule, and it's going to show some good metal production because as we mine this high grade core, we're not sterilizing any resource. It's all still there, and over time, I'm sure somebody will expand to get the whole resource, mine the whole resource. So those would be the next couple of things, and hopefully we are announcing, like I say, back to the strategic review. It may be a joint venture on the outside stuff. I don't know what it'll be. We're working on everything.
What's the potential timing on the release of the information about the staged approach?
It'll be Q1 of next year, and we intend to issue the technical report at the same time we issue the new resource and the press release with the summary. So that's the game plan, is to not wait the 40 days or whatever. It's issue at basically the same time, so the report's out there and people can really dig into that. We can talk more about it, and you'll have a chance to look at all the detail.
Well, I look forward to receiving that or hearing about that, Scott, and good luck with the strategic review process.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much, and as always, great chatting.
Well, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
This is Paul Harris for Kitco Mining at the Gold Forum Americas in Colorado Springs. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Gold Forum Americas is brought to you by Metalla Royalty and Streaming.